Okay, so for your information, we'll begin with a short presentation, followed by our guest speaker, Dr. Zenephia Evans, who will take the floor and share her stories. After this, you all will be placed in breakout rooms where you will do an activity, and then after the activity is over, we'll come back to the large room for a discussion, and then followed by closing remarks. We are going to go ahead and get started. So, Harry, take it away.
Hi, good evening. My name is Harry Brown. I'm Associate Director of the Roger C. Stewart Leadership and Professional Development Department. Thank you very much for joining us here tonight for this, the second presentation in the Essential Career Skills Discussion Series. Tonight, we will be discussing interpersonal awareness and development with our guest speaker, Zenephia Evans. I'd like to remind you that this session works best with your participation. So please ask questions, put them in the chat or raise your hand. We'll be happy to answer them. And also please actively participate in the breakout sessions and in the full discussion at the end of the session. Here's a list of the remaining sessions that are upcoming. I hope that you'll be able to join us for those. And now I want to just mention the theme of this whole series is essential career skills. And it's all about becoming career ready. Quite simply, being career ready requires development of core competencies that employers say they expect new graduates to be able to demonstrate. The essential career skills that our office promotes can be broken down and put into 4 categories: communication, ways of thinking, interpersonal skills, and intercultural knowledge. And tonight's topic, interpersonal awareness and development. In each one of those categories, there are 5 individual skills, competencies. And for interpersonal awareness and development, we have self-understanding, which is essentially understanding your beliefs, your values, your culture, your personality, your strengths, your weaknesses, and being aware of how they affect your choices and actions. There's continuous learning, which is a commitment to a constant process of improving your skills, abilities, and acquiring new knowledge. Professional careers in the 21st century require a cycle of learning, doing, relearning, and doing. So developing a habit of continuous learning is very important. Also, another competency within that group is initiative and follow-through. Initiative is all about you taking charge of situations when needed, seeing something that needs to be done, and taking appropriate action. Follow-through is about completing assigned tasks without having to be followed up with or reminded. It's about being reliable. Personal responsibility, it's accepting ownership of the consequences of your choices and actions. And relatedly, resiliency involves bouncing back from adversity and major setbacks, learning from experiences, and rising to the next challenge. So that's the topic, general frame for tonight. Now I'd like to introduce our guest speaker, Zenephia Evans. Dr. Evans earned her PhD from Purdue University in cell and developmental biology. During her professional career at Purdue, she has served as a biological science faculty lecturer, director of the Science Diversity Office, and is currently an Associate Dean of Students in the Office of the Dean of Students. Dr. Evans is an involved Boilermaker and has earned many recognitions, including the Special Boilermaker Award, Frederick Hovde Faculty Fellow of the Year Award, the Helen B. Schliemann Gold Medal honoree. She has received the One Brick Hire Award and has been recognized as the Title IX awardee here at Purdue. In addition, she was named a YWCA Salute to Women honoree and continues to serve on boards in the local community. Dr. Evans has advised several clubs over the years and is now serving as advisor to the newly formed Boiler Support Network and continuing to serve as a senior faculty fellow in Earhart. Let me introduce to you our guest speaker, Dr. Zenephia Evans.
Thank you, Harry. Woo. Okay, What I wanted to start off with is it's a pleasure to be here, and it's really weird being here because I worked with Roger when we were at Purdue. We were colleagues, and now I'm speaking at under his titled department on campus. So I know the man who's named after, the program is named after. So that's really, really cool. So what I wanted to do, when I thought about this program, the one book that I thought about is that book that was titled, All I Ever Really Needed to Learn, I Learned in Kindergarten. Now, let me just be honest, I've never read the book, but I like the title. So let me just put that out there. I'm an avid reader. That one I hadn't read yet, but and so I thought about this and I thought, I don't remember kindergarten very much. I think I cried my way through kindergarten because I didn't like to be away from my family. But what I do remember is that the foundation for my leadership started with my upbringing, with my parents. And so I'm going to shift this a little bit and talk about the leadership foundation that was laid by my mom. And you don't know her, but you're going to get to know a lot of insight about her as we're going through this presentation today. So if you ever meet her, you can tell her some of the quotes that she shared with us as we were growing up. So when I think about myself, who knows you better than you know yourself, right? And I think about that song. I'm a song person too. Who are you? Oh, 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 oh. I don't even know who sings that song. I know it's played before one of the NCIS series, so that's why I like it. I don't even know who sings it, but that's what came into my mind, right? And each point in your life, you hit some milestone, and that milestone is totally dependent on when you take the time to know you. Do you know your beliefs, your values, your culture, your everything about you, your strengths, your challenges, and you know them for you. My mother gave me what she wanted to give me, and as I grew and left Georgia and went to Alabama, then came to Indiana, and I'm still trying to figure it out when it's cold like this outside, but that's another discussion. She gave me some beliefs, but I had to shape them to make them my own, right? And so we diverged at some point in the woods, and that's okay. So because my lived experiences caused me to look at things differently than she would. But one of the things that my mother would say very early on, be yourself, because everybody else is taken, right? And so I remember as little kids, we would run home and say, the feds got a new go-kart, or they got one of these. And my mother said, okay, well, how are you going to navigate in life without it? Because we ain't got no money to get you one, right? So I had to then learn for myself, I'm not going to have what everybody else is going to have, but I can still have a good quality of life. So I had to learn for myself to say, what are the things that are important for me? What are those things that are my wants, and what are those things that are my needs, right? And so my mother helped us to learn that. And I say that all the time. So I would say, I want to go to this place, but I don't have anybody to go with me. And she would say, you weren't born a twin, so you can go by yourself, right? And so now that carries through with me. So I'm okay doing things. And I just got to tell you this funny story. So I was traveling at a conference once, and I was out at a hotel eating dinner by myself at a nice little restaurant. And there were a group of ladies, and they were like, that's so embarrassing to be sitting at a restaurant by yourself eating. And I thought, I'm hungry, they serve food, why is it embarrassing, right? And so I used it as a teachable moment. And I told a little white lie, so I'm gonna just preface this before I tell you that story. So I walked over to the ladies and I said, my husband passed away, and this was the last place he brought me for our date, and I'm just really trying to reestablish myself into the world. And they bought my dinner, but I did not let them leave with that lie, okay? So I was supposed to be timing myself, so I didn't talk over. I did not let them leave with that lie. When they brought my dinner, I told the waitress when I left, take them this sheet of paper to say, I wasn't married. I was just hungry, but thank y'all for dinner, right? And so you need to understand that you can be comfortable. I'm very comfortable with me. right? And so that self-actualization and knowing who you are, that was one of the first lessons I think I learned as a leader. And sometimes you're going to go off on a limb by yourself, and that's okay, because you know it's the right thing to do. So that was taken, I didn't even have that story written down, but anyway, I thought about it as we were talking. And again, one of the things that I want to challenge you with, you're honing your leadership skills that you have from high school to college. By the time you leave college, nobody should be able to tell you something about yourself that you don't already know. As a little one, people were always helping you to learn and develop, but you have to get to some point in your life where you know everything there is to know about you, and it's not a surprise when somebody tells you something about yourself. So that's when I think about that first self-understanding. That for me is getting to the point where when someone says, you're not the most organized person. If you ever see my desk, you would know that's true. You're not the most organized person around. I'm like, you're correct. I've been knowing that for a while, right? And I'm working on it, but it's not my strength. And that's okay, because I have other things that are my strengths. Resiliency or grit. When you think about, when I think about this, my mother would always tell us the story about Wilma Rudolph. And if you don't know who Wilma Rudolph is, look up Wikipedia a little bit later on. But Wilma had polio and couldn't walk for a while. And so her mother continued to push her. But one of the things Wilma said that my mother quoted was, winning is great, sure. But if you're really going to do something in life, the secret is learning to lose, right? And so I always think about that when I played, I was a cheerleader. And I played volleyball and I played basketball. And I would think about how we would celebrate when we won. But I always thought about the other team. And my coaches were very clear. Congratulate the other team first. When they leave, then you can celebrate. Because when you're on the other end of that, you don't want somebody jumping all around and you're on the losing side of that equation, right? So what really gets you is how you can bounce back from those losses. What are the things that you focus on? What are the experiences that you take away from the losses? Looking at the post-game tape. And what are the things you formulate for corrective action? And how do you rise to the next challenge? Nobody's going to win every game. Let's just be clear. You're not going to win every game, right? Even the winningest, you could have Drew Brees on your team when he was playing. You're not going to win every Super Bowl. You're just not. Right? And so how do you get to that point where you say, okay, when I win, what are the lessons I take away from that? And when I lose, what are the lessons that I take away from that? And I remember a story when I had a counselor when I was in high school transitioning to college. And I got accepted at all these colleges. I was valedictorian. And she said to me, I wanted to go to a historically Black institution because I needed to know what it meant to be in this space and be unapologetically strong as a Black woman. And she said to me, that is the most foolish decision you can make by attending a historically Black college. And I was like, oh, okay. But in my mind, I knew that's what I was going to do, right? So I listened to her and I did what I did. And so this was a professional. So she stopped speaking to me when it came out to make the decision. She stopped speaking to me for the rest of the year, which was fine by me, right? Because she wasn't that important in my life. But I went back, my district gave me an award after I received my PhD. And guess who was there? And she came up to me and she said, I always knew that you were going to be wonderful. And I said, we have a different narrative of the last time we spoke because I think you said something about foolish and decision, and I'm glad I didn't listen to you, but I own my responsibility. I knew what I needed in that space and I went for it. And so thanks to you, I didn't listen to you and I'm doing my thing, but I'm glad you remember it one way, but I sure remember that a totally different angle on that one. And that was what I learned then. Her micro or macroaggressions, what I didn't have a name for it then, But she had a goal for me in mind that didn't mesh with mine. And so whose dream is it, right? My dream. So if I fell on my face, I own that I fell on my face, right? And so she was trying to push me to make me do something or be somebody that I didn't want to be. And I was strong enough because I was aware of who I was, what I was bringing to the table, that I could follow in that direction. So understand that you should work on you. And what I do now and is make sure that if people ask me to do something, I really have to process it, because I don't want to overpromise and underdeliver, because that says a lot about you as an individual, says a lot about your character when you overpromise and underdeliver. Because for me, I have great ideas, right? And it's putting those ideas into practice that take the work. And how do we get to that point, right? And if I'm overpromising with everything, then I don't have room to process and put everything in the space where it needs to go. So when I think about that, I go back to that little poem that we used to say when I was in Girl Scouts, or I don't know, something growing up, but it stuck in my head. I think my mom said it to me. Watch your thoughts because they become your words. Watch your words, they become your actions. Watch your actions because they become your habits. Watch your habits, they become your character. And watch your character, for it becomes your destiny. And so when you're thinking about what it is you're doing, what is the destiny you want to lead? What's the path that you want to go, right? When I started this career, I came to Purdue to get a PhD in cell and developmental biology. I was going to do research on sickle cell and wound healing. I am so far away from that at this point that I don't even know. I'm in the dean's office, right? As Associate Dean of Education and Advocacy. Very different from the dream that I had, but I was willing to say, okay, I started down this path. It didn't work well for me, so I could reverse, right? And so we are doing that a lot with COVID also, right? We're reversing. When I think about continuous learning, right? The people you put into your network will help you decide and help you clearly say, that's not your strong suit. You need to think about doing something different. And that's okay. You need to have those types of people in your life. But when I think about continuous learning, I think about two quotes from Nelson Mandela. And one, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. Education is one of the most powerful weapons that you can use to change the world. Now, this impact could be felt just by you and your family and friends. This impact could be felt by everybody. Neil Armstrong walked on the moon. Everybody felt that impact, right? So not all of us will have that level of impact in the spaces that we occupy, but we can still have a very strong level. And so Stephanie Knight and I are working with the Steps to Leaps. And so I'm kind of weaving in some of the Steps to Leaps pillars as we're talking. And so we're looking at what we can do in this space to make sure when the Boilermakers leave Purdue, not only are you great leaders, you're great people, you're learned in the knowledge that of your major, right? So those are the things that we want for each Boilermaker as you progress out of this space. My mother used to say, you do better when you know better, right? And so how do you know better, right? That's from learning. You have to have this continuous learning in your space. And so for me, I am an avid reader, although I hadn't read all the things I learned in kindergarten. But I read on average about 2 to 3 books a week, right? And so 2 of those books are going to be strictly for pleasure. So everything from James Patterson to rom-com to whatever. One of those books is going to be about something that I need to work on, right? Something that I need to do to make me the best that I could be in my space. And I try to find, it might not be a book, it might be an article, but I'm reading something to make sure that I'm staying up on my craft. And then I challenged myself. One of my colleagues said to me, there's no way you can be in higher education and not know what's going on by reading the Chronicle, So she gifted me with the Chronicle coming into my inbox every morning. Right. And then she quizzes me when we talk, right? She goes, did you see that article in the Chronicle? I'm like, so then I was like, nope. And so she was like, well, tell me about it tomorrow, right? So she's pushing me to say, this is something that you need to do. And so after a while, I just gave up. So the Chronicle comes out about 5:40. I just turn on my phone because I'm up at 4. So I just turn on my phone, go through the articles. So I'm done and we can talk about those articles, right? But that's part of my continuous learning and part of me saying, I know what's going on in education if I'm going to be in the realm of education to help people. So when we talk about these leadership competencies, who are you? Do you know who you are? Because if you don't, who will, right? What do you do when you start down one path and it doesn't quite work for you? How do you navigate the pivot? How do you take personal responsibility? So taking personal responsibility for knowing what you want and getting what it is you want, right? And taking personal responsibility when you don't do what it is you're supposed to do because you've overcommitted and then you have underdelivered. And so I simply say to people, listen, I know I said I was going to do this, but we need to reevaluate this because things have happened that I'm not going to be able to do that. And I'm okay with that, but I can make some suggestions, or we can rework the timeline. So that personal responsibility. And the one that's harder for me, I have great initiative because I can really think, is the follow through, right? And so I'm working on that every day. At the end of the day, I write down what things that I accomplished, what I need to accomplish for tomorrow, and then I can go through my checklist. Do things fall through the cracks? Yep. But I can pick it back up and make it work for the next day, right? And be a continuous learner. So balance it between things you want to read for pleasure and those things that you need to read to be the best at your craft in that space. And I want to end with this one quote that I have by the Dalai Lama that I really like. How do you view you? That's the question that I'm asking. And so the Dalai Lama says, in order to carry a positive action, we must develop here a positive vision. So what is your vision on your interpersonal awareness and development? If you don't have one to start off, I don't know where you can't get there because you don't know where you're going. And with that, I think I've talked my space, and I'm going to turn it back over to the people that are controlling things to know what we do next.
Yes, you're turning it back over to the person who talks far too much, me. So welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that. It was a lot of good information, and Zenephia is a great storyteller, and and thank you very much, Zenephia. Now we're going to go and do a activity where you're going to be assigned to a breakout room. In the breakout room, you're going to have some jam boards. The facilitators for your breakout room will be putting the link to the Jamboard in the text messages here in the chat. So you can open those and use those within your rooms that you're going to be in. Now, what you're going to do is each Jamboard has 1 or 2 questions that relate to the 5 competencies that we've been talking about tonight. What you will do is use these sticky note apps to respond to or answer, what does that competency mean to you? How has you used it? How has it become a stumbling block? So you just have to put down 1 or 2 words or a short phrase. Others in the room can ask you for more information about what you've put up there. And they can do it in this way. They can say, wow, that's interesting. Could you tell me a little bit more about that? It's about generating conversation. It's about you reflecting on what those competencies mean to you, what they have meant for your life, how you can use them in your life, how you have used them in your life. Don't worry about getting through all of the Jamboards. If you get good conversations on one Jamboard, great. It's about reflecting on your experience and asking others questions which will help them continue and deepen their reflection. Okay, is that cool? You're going to have about 12 minutes, so work through them. The really important thing is to have good reflective conversations. That's what's important. And then we'll come back and we'll ask someone from each group to tell us one significant thing that they heard in their group. Okay, so I think I'm going to do this correctly. I'm going to drop.
So I'm going to open the breakout rooms now. If you are in breakout room 7 or 8, hold tight. Just to let you know, each breakout room, one facilitator will be between 2 breakout rooms. So if you don't have like a leader in your group, just sit tight for a few minutes and then they'll join you shortly. So breakout rooms have been opened. Everyone is back in the main room.
Okay. Here's your chance to say something. Please do not be shy. So someone volunteer to one insight, one interesting thing you heard from your discussions in your breakout group.
I was in breakout room number 4, I believe, and we had a theme of like really struggling with tasks that had a massive time frame, especially, like school assignments that would take months. And we would all struggle with like just getting ourselves started.
Mm-hmm. And did you come up with any ideas of how to do that? Because that's really that's combining initiative and follow through.
Yeah. Admittedly, we didn't really get that far, like into a rich discussion about it, but we did talk a little bit about kind of, like thinking about the possible, both good and bad outcomes to try and, get ourselves interested in starting the task.
Yeah. Anyone else have something that they want to mention?
I was in meeting 3, and it was kind of interesting. We were talking about the first part for quite some time, and it was just nice to see that everyone was in kind of a little bit of a quest to like learn something different and new, and they all ranged in different complexities, and that's very much okay. And it was kind of cool to just see the diversity amongst what everyone was trying to accomplish.
Mm-hmm. Someone else.
Hi, I was in group 6, and something that stood out to me was one of the girls said learning more about other people's cultures and ethnicities. And I think that is important because not only does it build your development as a person and understanding them, it'll go a long way in the work field and wherever you go in life with who you meet. So that stood out to me, and I think that's something very important for anyone.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Very good. Someone else.
I was in.
Oh,
Go ahead. Go ahead, please.
Okay.
I was in group 8, and I found it very almost comforting to hear that a lot of people in similar situations to mine kind of struggling with the same stuff I am and having the same kind of experiences that I am. One of those being struggling with delegation and wanting to be better at it in leadership positions so that we don't burn ourselves out and get too ambitious with our goals.
Yeah, and that speaks to taking initiative. And then when you take initiative in a negative way, in other words, you take on too much responsibility, then it makes it difficult to follow through. So it's really kind of a balancing act in terms of taking initiative and following through and understanding how that tension is there between the two. So it's a good lesson to learn. Anyone else? We've got about 6 more minutes, and I'm probably a couple more, and then we'll do a wrap up.
We've got about 2 more minutes, and then we're going to do the wrap up.
Oh, we got 2 more minutes to do the wrap up. I'm glad I have a timekeeper.
I was in breakout room 5, and we had a great discussion on interpersonal skills and being aware of other cultures as well. And I guess sort of following on from Noah, we had a very interesting discussion on basically, as we are adapting from an academic culture and going into industry, thinking about or like learning more about financial tools. So that was actually an aspect of continuous learning that we were talking about, and was a very interesting discussion.
Yeah, I guess I'll start wrapping up by saying we talk about all of these competencies within each group as if they're discrete, but they're not. They're all linked. They all feed and build on each other, and developing one of the competencies is going to help you develop and be more effective in another competency. And also, as we saw with taking initiative and overcommitting, can then make it difficult to follow through. So understanding how these mesh, how they fit together in your life, how they're going to make you more successful and better able to achieve your goals. That's what it's all about. And again, you're practicing each one of these competencies every single day. They're not extra. What you need to do is be aware that what you're doing and be intentional about understanding how you're doing them well or not doing them so well, and how you can develop them further to be more successful. And that's really what your big challenge is. Again, none of this is anything extra that you have to learn. It's stuff you're already doing, and it will help you today at Purdue, as a student, as a friend, as a campus employee, and when you go out into what is often called the real world. But this is the real world too. It's your real world. So that's cool. I think we have to say that the PowerPoint will be sent out, and this recording will be sent out. We have to have this recording edited and set up so that we can put it out on the YouTube, and that takes a couple days, probably more than that. Eileen could say how many days it takes, but we will notify you as soon as it's out there. You'll see at the end of the PowerPoint, the PDF that we send you are some suggestions of how you can go about exploring these competencies and the other competencies more. One of the ways you can go to our self-guided course on Brightspace, and there's a link for that. And Eileen just put that in the chat. So you can go there and you can work at your own pace and move through those and really just introduce and get more information about what it means, what those competencies are, and what it means, and strategies on how to develop them. Okay. I think I talked enough. Have I talked enough, Eileen?
Yeah, I'll close it out from here. Thank you,
Okay.
Harry.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for being here.
Congratulations by attending this session. You are one step closer to earning the certificate of completion for this series. So attend 4 of 6 events in the series to earn a certificate from the Roger C. Stewart Leadership and Professional Development Department and Student Activities and Organizations. And you might be wondering, when's the next event? So this is our next event. Let me drop the link for the RSVP in the chat, which is now available. There we go. We will have guest speaker Lowell Kane, who is the director of Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender, and Queer Center, so the LGBTQ Center here at Purdue. It's going to be in 2 weeks, same time, and also on a Tuesday, and it's going to be through Zoom. So we hope to see you there. And then finally, we have the attendance. If you haven't signed in yet, let me put the link again in the chat so you can sign in and make sure you get that credit for that goes towards the certificate. There we go. So the link is in the chat, and then I will just move to the last slide. Thank you all so much for coming. If you have any questions or want to learn more, you can contact Harry Brown, and I will put his information in the chat. As well, if you want to learn more about our future events and get the most latest updates, please feel free to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And I also put our partner SAO's information on there as well.